time in this country, a long time ago, when reading wasn't just for fags, and neither was writing. People wrote books and movies that had stories, so you cared whose ass it was and why it was farting, and I believe that time can come again.
Hello, and welcome back to the Think Liberty podcast, episode 64, hosted on the Think Liberty Network. I'm Caitlin Cloven, your host this week. Our regular host, Vinnie Marshall, is moving on to new ventures, starting his own podcast on a new feed, which will be announced very soon through Think Liberty and Being Libertarian. For a sneak peek of what that podcast will look like, listen to episode 63 of the Think Liberty podcast, as that was his pilot episode titled Amazon Isn't Killing Retail. We're very excited to start this new chapter of this podcast and hope you enjoy the new show. So to get started this week, I'd like to welcome my co-host, Lonie Dupree and Matthew McGowan. How are you guys this evening?
I'm doing great, Caitlin. How are you?
Doing great. Lonie?
Yeah, I'm pretty good.
Nice. Well, we took a week off. It's great to be back, you know. What have you guys been up to lately?
I pretty much had the flu I don't know that it's the flu. I don't want to say that, but I had whatever funk was crossing the Midwest for the last week. So the week off came at the timing couldn't have been better.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been very useful last week.
I hear you. My kids have been sick on and off. It's been not fun. Whatever this bug is.
It ravaged our house like creeping death. It was something to behold.
Kids too.
Yeah. Yeah, they pass it like the proverbial doobie, and it keeps going round and round.
Right.
I was just gonna say that for the past 2 weeks, I've been sick. I even thought I had pink eye at once, but it was actually just my sinuses backing up into my eye, which I didn't know that could happen. But it was leaking and all crusty and pink and red and just like pink eye. So I went to the doctor and they swabbed my eye and tested it. And they're like, nope, it's just sinuses. I was like, what? They're like, yeah, it happens. I was like, yeah, because they're just like so matter of factly, just like, yeah, sometimes your sinuses and snot just backs up into your eyeball. And I was like, that's pretty gross. And they're like, yeah, it is. I was like, oh,
it's disgusting.
Okay.
Anyway, so this week I'd like to discuss a newcomer on the Democratic presidential candidate scene, Andrew Yang. This guy seemingly came out of nowhere the last few months and has taken the internet by storm, especially the last couple weeks. What's most surprising to me is the level of libertarian attention and support he seems to be getting. He's the center of the popular Yang Gang hashtag that's trending and the subsequent meme storm, which apparently he's been taking advantage of 4chan and Reddit shitposters and former Kekistan followers and paying them for memes to be made.
Wow.
Now, I can't exactly knock the strategy, as it's largely credited as getting Donald Trump the attention he needed to get elected. But it is hilarious to me that a Democratic presidential nominee is hiring the same 4chan users that memed for Donald Trump and were labeled as alt-right during the last election to make his unofficial internet campaign material. Apparently he's paying these people $40 an hour to meme for them, and that's just insane.
Yeah, how do we get in on that?
Yeah,
I got a couple ideas.
Yeah, is there like an application on his website that we can fill out?
You have to be on 4chan. The article I was reading is he was reaching out on 4chan. So get on there and maybe you'll get lucky. I don't know.
Yeah, but I don't want to go there. It's a terrible, terrible place.
Yeah, somebody make sure you share this podcast with him.
Yeah, it is a dark corner of the internet. I try and stay away from it as much as possible. So Yang, he's also heavily promoting his $1,000 a month UBI plan called the Freedom Dividend. UBI is even debated in libertarian circles as a possible alternative to the massive welfare state, seen as a stepping stone towards decreasing the dependency on government assistance. As enticing as that is, it's easy to see why he's been getting so much attention recently. We won't be getting into the weeds of UBI plan this week, as we've covered that extensively before in episode 59 of this show, his interview with Lance Cayko on Being Libertarian, and an interview one of our writers had with him back in November, all of which will be linked in the show notes for our listeners. But before we get any further, what are your initial thoughts on Andrew Yang as a candidate for the Democratic presidential nomination?
I don't know. He just seems like another big government politician with tons of promises, a little bit of charisma, a little bit of uniqueness to him to make him stand out. But at the end of the day, just another guy that wants to take my money and spend it on bullshit.
Yeah, but he wants to give you $1,000 a month, though. I mean, so he's kind of going to take your money, but give it back to you.
Right. Let me just hold it for a minute and I'll give it back.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I fell for that when I was like 6, man. Sorry. But anyway.
Well, I see him kind of as a radical centrist because, I don't know, like looking at his platform, it's kind of all over the place. Like he's got some economically right positions, economically left. Obviously, he's running as a Democrat. But all of his proposals are fairly unique. Like you can tell that he's done a lot of research and he's come up with a lot of unique solutions. So that's where the radical comes in. But he's still like kind of a centrist, and it's probably why he gets so much appeal. You know, he has so many followers from all over the spectrum. But I don't know, man. I can't buy into the whole Yang Gang thing.
He definitely seems to have staked out a very broad space for himself with ideas that appeal to pretty much everybody. So,
yeah.
hats off there. Yeah.
He's good at marketing, and he's good at appealing to, millennials and pretty much anyone at this point, it seems.
Because, if you look at his policy page, there's like 40 different things on there, and there's something for everybody. Even if you don't agree with 3/4 of it, you're going to find something that you're like, all right, no matter who you are, you're going to find something that you like about them.
Right. So what we wanted to do was talk about some of Yang's lesser-known platform positions, since the freedom dividend takes up so much of the conversation surrounding him. While some hail him as a hero for his unique positions and may even believe he's a liberty-leaning candidate, if you take a look at the rest of his platform, that's not exactly the case. So we're always trying to be fair in our assessments. So I'd like to start off pointing out some of the fantastic positions he does take. Like Lonie said, there's something for everybody in his platform. I've found a few that I like. Starting with reducing mass incarceration. Can definitely get behind that. Identify nonviolent drug offenders for probation and potential early release. 100% behind that one. Mm-hmm. Shift federal drug policy away from punishment and towards treatment. I'm a big advocate of, reforming the prison system. If people aren't getting, reformed in prison, which is obviously not the case, the recidivism rate is so high, then we need another approach. So I can get behind Yang's position on that. Another one is emphasizing vocational and trade school education. This one's a little tricky because he wants to subsidize some trade school and vocational school programs, but overall, it's a pretty good position. I do think that we need to steer young people towards the direction of trade and vocational school, because college is kind of a racket, and you get a lot more out of vocational and trade school.
No question.
Yeah. So legalize marijuana is another one. Obviously, that's a good one. I'd rather, push for repeal and rescind all marijuana laws, but if we have to go the legalized route, that's fine. Another one, which is really good, automatically sunsetting old laws. So no new spending laws can be introduced without an expiration date. So he makes a really good point in his platform to say that, Congress and our legal system isn't set up to repeal old laws or review older laws outside of the Supreme Court. So with this, all new laws introduced would have to have some kind of expiration date to where they're taken off the books after a time, or they have to have a detailed plan of when they will expire. And I like that a lot. And I think there was something in there about reviewing older laws and taking those off the books as well. Because, we have I don't even know the exact number of laws. I don't think anybody knows the exact number of laws we have on the books because there's so many. And they're on top of each other, and there's laws for the laws. It's a bit extreme.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
For sure. And then every cop gets a camera. Really excited about that one. That's great.
Yeah.
Cops are a government institution. It's a government service. They should be held accountable, even if it's by a different part of government. I'm all for it.
Hey, it's like the right always says: if you're not doing anything wrong, you have nothing to worry about. Exactly. So put on your camera.
I'm a little torn on that one. The reason why is because if they're being monitored that closely, then yes, there will be the instances where you'll be able to catch brutality, and stuff like that, and you'll be able to tell in the courts and everything. But there's also, I feel that there's going to be a lot of, hey, you really should have gave this person a speeding ticket instead of a warning. That kind of thing, where, or a cop that, maybe they personally don't really care if someone has like a little tiny bit of weed or like a joint in their pocket, and they're just like, look, just go throw it away, air quotes, and I'm just going to take off and, whatever. Well, they probably won't be able to do stuff like that because they will have to enforce the law. And, if they let someone go like that, it will, I kind of feel like it will put them to where they have to enforce the law as it's written and stuff like that. And they can't kind of play around with it and kind of, help people out, whenever something is really minor and just doesn't need to be enforced. I mean, I don't know, Matthew, what do you think?
I don't know that. I'm sure that happens a lot, and I'm sure we don't hear about it. I don't think if a police officer is shown exercising restraint and good discretion and being helpful, that, it's largely going to be how the public judges them. And I think that maybe that might be a PR win for beleaguered police officers across the country. All the good guys can have a chance to show that they're good guys. It can be a win for them. It's what you make of it. If you're doing nefarious, illegal shit, you're going to get caught. And if you're doing good shit, it's going to be exposed. So I say bring it.
With that, I think it can be a good thing. And, if they're letting people off with these, stupid petty crimes or things that they don't agree with, that footage can be released, and then the public can see that even the police don't believe in these laws. So it gives people who want to repeal those laws a lot more ammo.
Amen.
In the legal system.
Okay.
So
yeah.
I mean, you do have a point that, the departments that they work for can hold that against them and be like, hey, you need to enforce this more. But if they have a moral problem with enforcing a law, they can take that footage public and be like, look, I don't believe in this. 80% of my department doesn't believe in this. Let's get this law changed. And they have a lot more ammo. So I can see that's a good thing.
I'm sorry, I coughed a little bit. I see what you mean. That is a good point. I guess my thought is whenever you have people, because I mean you can look on any sort of hold on, my daughter just came in the room. Any sort of comment section, and you see where people are like, well, that's just the law. If you don't like it, well, whatever. They don't care, and they just kind of, I don't know. Like that's where I kind of see that there hopefully will be support for that kind of stuff, but there might not be, as much as what we're thinking.
Situation for sure. But
yeah, I think I think a lot of videos,
the benefit outweighs the negative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you see a lot of the videos today where they're highlighting police officers doing good. Like the cop helping surprise a family when their loved one comes home from the military and shit like that. They're dying for positive press. So, if some videos get leaked of police officers exercising discretion and actually helping someone, if their own departments crack on them for it, it's going to look worse on the chiefs and the people cracking on them than it is the officers. I think it's definitely an opportunity for a PR win for them, for sure.
Okay. Well, yeah. All right. Well, that makes sense then. Yeah, that was just one of my concerns about it, that I kind of, I was like, well, I would just hate for, because I'm not one of those people that believes that every cop is a bad cop or a bad person or whatever.
Right.
That there are people that, they genuinely do want to help the public, and they don't want to put some kid in jail for and ruin their life over a joint or whatever, or some other minor thing. And I just would hate for the good cops to, well, you didn't do your job because your job was to arrest this person, but
Right.
Now just say it with the footage being able to release, if the footage were to be able to be released, and the public would be like,
Mm-hmm.
I guess I kind of see your point now.
Yeah, and it doesn't make your point any less valid. There's a lot of concerns. It's like mandatory sentencing. You don't want a judge necessarily tied down where they can't use their discretion in a way that could be helpful. But I think with the police officers, it'll be a little different because you still have that video and you still have the court of public opinion. And, this is your opportunity to shine, good cops. Make of it what you will. Yeah.
So zoning laws are another one that I really, really like in his platform. It's probably one of my favorites. So what he wants to do is work with localities to relax zoning ordinances for the purpose of increasing the development of affordable housing. So he uses San Francisco and New York as examples for this. Like, he's based in New York. So the biggest problem for affordable housing in these areas is because of zoning restrictions. You have airspace regulations, and you can't build in anyone's eye line. Like, these are just ridiculous things that drive up the cost of housing. So relaxing these zoning ordinances will lead to a higher supply of housing, bringing the price down. So, huge fan of this one. I think he's right on the nose for it.
Yeah, I really do like that one because, what is it? I believe, I don't know if it's all of San Francisco, but I believe it is in San Francisco. I could be wrong, but they have those, what would you call it? Like a sunshine law, I think they called it, where a building can't be over 3 stories or something like that because it could block the view of the sky, or it's something really ridiculous like that. Well, what that means is that instead of being able to go up with buildings, you have to go out with buildings.
Right.
And because of that, that means that there needs to be more buildings. And with other zoning laws, of course, then they probably can't make more. So this is why a 1-bedroom apartment costs astronomical prices, because the demand, the supply is so low and the demand is so high. Basic economics here. Yeah. So definitely zoning laws are a big part of not only reducing prices, but helping with homelessness, so many things.
Yeah,
and yes, there's
a ton of issues that it can impact, not just housing prices, but other economic issues in the areas. But yeah, so those are the 6 things that I really like in his platform. Are there any other ones in his platform that you guys like that I didn't mention?
I think you pretty well covered. I went through the list, and I'm definitely trying to look at ideas that fit into, my libertarian philosophy. And those are areas where it was less questionable than others. I guess we put it that way.
All right.
Yeah, there was a couple where I don't think that they were necessarily like libertarian friendly, but they were. I kind of noticed that it seems to be that he's creating problems for the government that aren't government problems. Like, for example, one of them was funding autism intervention, where, the idea is catching autism as early as possible to where the children can be adequately treated and given the best chance going forward, and so on. And it's like that's a great idea. And no one can really make an argument against an idea like that. But why is it like why does this have to be government funded? Certain things like that, where it's just, yes, that's a great idea. Yes, there should be better, because I think one of them was something about single parents, more help for single parents. Yeah, these are all great ideas, but they're not, are they really government problems? Are they things that should be funded through taxpayer money? And it's just like, it's like you want to like them. You want to like these ideas, but, you almost can't, That's one of the things I noticed with some of his platform.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of things in his platform that, sound good on their face, like funding autism research, things that they just sound good to people. So it gets people on board. But you start digging into these, and there's a lot of really, really bad economic positions just kind of all over his platform, even with some of the good stuff. So, we had to give credit where it's due. He has some good platforms. Now, I'd like to cover some of his not so good platforms, not covering UBI, but some of the other ones that we've seen that are just atrocious for a presidential candidate. Matthew, you had some that you wanted to cover.
I did. So going through his list, I mean, it's, there's certainly plenty to choose from, but three of them stood out to me as just textbook examples of, how this guy, it's remarkable, the way that he's trying to appeal to every single possible constituency. One of his things that he wants to propose is free marriage counseling to be made available to married couples all throughout the country. And the way that he is proposing to do this is twofold. He wants to make sure that family counseling is included in any healthcare plan offered through the federal government, which, in the private sector, my insurance has that. I guess it's not necessarily nefarious on its face. Then we are going to mandate the inclusion of family counseling services in any plan sold through the ACA marketplaces, and subsidize marriage counseling provided by a credentialed provider through the tax code. So essentially subsidize another part of the healthcare system, this one with personal relationships. And I just, that it's obvious on its face that that's not anywhere for the government to go. But you get down to the realistic view of everything that we seem to subsidize in this country turns to shit. So I envision an army of online internet course marriage certified counselors descending on this country, and the government subsidizing their education and their employment. And it's a whole nother layer of spending that sounds good and sounds wonderful that would just explode into utter chaos.
I can imagine it turning into kind of like the public defender profession. You have a bunch of overworked, underpaid, and not so great people doing all the work. So I don't think you're going to get the the benefit that you want out of it. Like,
No.
I mean, marriage counseling
But
is
you're gonna-
great for everybody, but it's not really something you want the government running.
No, it's going to be ridiculously expensive and highly inefficient.
Yeah, especially when most people can get free marriage counseling from their church, their pastor. All they have to do is just call up their pastor, after service, or their priest after mass, whatever the case may be. Hey, can we set up, me and my wife, me and my husband, we want to talk to you. Can we set up maybe an hour sometime during the week? And usually that's very easy to do. It doesn't cost anything. And, a decent bit of people go to church, and, that's just something that they can do, and sometimes, I mean, you probably don't even really need to go to church. You can just kind of, hey, we know you've been trained in this thing. Sorry, we don't attend, but can you talk to us? And most of the time they'll probably do that. And, there may be a relative that most people have that, that they've been married for 30, 40, 50 years or so, and they can talk to them. And, there's so many other ways that people can get free counseling, and it's not really, it's not really totally necessary to have to create a whole new agency for this. Even through certain already existing government, say like a county or whatever that has like a mental health facility. And if you qualify for the services or whatever, you're on Medicaid or you have, government insurance or something like that, you can usually schedule a marriage counseling with the counselors that they have there. These are things that are already kind of in place, and it's just completely unnecessary in my mind.
That's one of the funny pieces of it, because when you read on his website where he talks about this, he's making a very strong appeal about how two-parent households benefit children. And I'm not saying that's wrong at all, but I find it funny. That's been a Republican talking point for decades. And they used to catch a lot of shit for saying it. And now it's a central plank of a Democratic candidate's effort to expand government further into healthcare. It's crafty as hell, man. I'll give him that. Second piece that stuck out to me is he wants to establish a $1 billion local journalism fund. And the way that this would operate is the FCC would issue grants to various small journalism organizations, newspapers, whatnot, radio, and essentially fund their existence. It's almost as if he wants to create an army of small NPRs across the country, because there's nothing better than government run media. And then finally, the one that I just, if I had to pick one thing, the freedom dividend included, any of it, he has put forth a proposal to make taxes fun. And I'm going to read a little bit from his platform here, because you got to hear it, man. You can't really appreciate it without hearing him explain it. So he says, currently paying taxes is a slog. Instead, let's make it a celebration. So right off the bat, he wants to celebrate us getting robbed by the government. He wants to establish Revenue Day, the day that taxes are due. And he thinks that should be a federal holiday, and the day should feature celebrations. I just, the mentality behind, hey, I'm going to pilfer 40% of your income and you're going to fucking like it so much you're going to celebrate it. Just it speaks to an arrogance, and I can't even. That to me, when I read the good ideas that he proposes in other areas, the mentality that he's coming from, where he expects me to celebrate 40% of my income being forfeited to causes that have nothing to do with my good or the good of my country. It's just insulting. So,
yeah, absolutely.
That's my piece.
Yeah, the making taxes fun one is just hilarious to me.
It's so hard for me to enunciate how I feel on it because I'm just flabbergasted. But reading this out loud, it's like Bizarro World.
I kind of imagined whenever you said Revenue Day, I kind of imagined like a carnival, with rides and everything. So you can go turn in like all your receipts for your business. And this gives you like tokens, or you can go ride the Sizzler and the spaceship, right, and all this kind of stuff. And you can, your tax return will be, given to you, in like little goldfish and little bowls and stuffed animals and things like that. Like, I don't know. Yeah. That's just what I have
weird names for shit, like the audit coaster and other weird ass government fucking games you could play. I just wow.
That would be pretty cool to have a tax themed carnival.
Right.
Would be great.
Hey, there you go. Yang gang.
Jesus. Lonie, you had a couple you wanted to cover too.
Yeah. One of the ones was the he wants to use the post office as a way to provide basic banking services. And the logic here, I believe, is that, okay, like you said, there are many communities that are underbanked throughout the U.S. and have to rely on payday lenders, which, of course, everyone knows it's a loan shark. However, virtually every community has a post office, which are now looking for new sources of revenue and support. So the idea is to provide check cashing, savings accounts, wiring money, and other basic financial services. I guess Western Union isn't good enough for wiring money, and you can't. Walmart has Walmart to Walmart. You can go look at any Walmart, which is usually in every community as well, and pay a small fee, Walmart to Walmart. If the person you're sending money to has a Walmart, they go to the Walmart, they use the confirmation code, and the Walmart hands them the money. I've done it plenty of times. I mean, it's like I get it. You want to have more of these services available so people aren't taken advantage of by, the payday lenders, which, like I said, they're basically legal loan sharks, but encourage post offices to stay open until 8 p.m. on Tuesdays to accommodate customers. Why Tuesday? Why Tuesday? Why not Friday or whatever? Since that's what most people are paid.
You make a good point about the government not wanting people to be taken advantage of by these predatory practices. So get the government to do the predatory practices.
Right. Of course.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's so much better when the government does it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
You can have celebrations of it.
Yeah, and then have a celebration that the government is fucking with your money. Even more. Like, it's not enough that they tax you, like, up to 60%, but now they're going to control your money in the bank, too. Like, and bro.
And there's already, like, me in my town, my post office is actually pretty good. They're fairly efficient. Like, I know that's odd to say, but it's a well-run post office. 2 miles down the road, there's a post office that's absolutely terrible. It's these old people that have been there for 40 years. They're not getting fired. They literally will just stop and take a break in the middle of, and now you're doing that with people's money, or unless you're hiring new people, I guess, and then there's the old, joke of going postal. So now you're adding more stress on these post offices. I don't know. I don't think anyone's going to shoot someone over wiring some money to somebody, but it is a joke of sorts.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, but
Okay,
But,
when my post office can't even handle delivering a package, like the last 4 packages that have come through the post office, I've gotten like 2-3 days late, or they've just lost them. So
Right.
I really
And
don't
that's
want them handling my money. And the thing is with
Right.
this is they're trying to solve a problem of, communities and rural areas being underbanked when all they have to do is lessen the regulations on banking, and you can solve the problem without more government.
Use the same logic. Use the same logic with your zoning laws.
Exactly.
Your logic is pretty solid on your zoning laws, and so use the same. Deregulate. I mean, come on. I mean, you're so close. All you got to do is just do the same thing.
Be logically consistent. Yeah.
Right, but I mean, you can't really expect that. But oh well. The other one was easing the transition to self-driving vehicles, which, it's kind of like, okay, well, what does that mean? And me as a car guy, I don't like self-driving vehicles anyways, but that's a whole nother story. But this one is actually more about protection of truck drivers. Because one of the things that you'll see in the future is companies using self-driving 18-wheelers and things like that to transport stuff, because the idea that it's safer, there's less human error, they don't have to rest, especially with a lot of truck drivers having to do the electronic logging system, which that's a big mess. They have to they have scheduled breaks. They have to take, like these 11 hours of driving time. They have to mandatory take an 8-hour sleeping break. And sometimes these breaks end up 30 minutes from home or 30 minutes from their destination, and they can't move anymore. So the idea of the self-driving truck will be very beneficial to the transportation industry. But with that, there will be job losses, of course. Not
the very job losses that he predicts with automation, and that's why he's instituting UBI. So he's going to accelerate that.
Right.
To what?
Yeah, with this. UBI? Yeah, with these fancy plans here. And it's like, I get it. You want to protect these people or whatever. And it's, saying, 7 million Americans' jobs, including 3.5 million truck driving jobs, are at risk of self-driving trucks becoming more viable.
So let's subsidize these jobs going away. Like, let's just speed up that process.
Right.
Keep it going. Yeah.
Because the company, right? Because the companies that are already looking into this, because they're already looking into this. They're going to go. I mean, this is still going to be cheaper than all of the errors made. Human error, any accidents.
Well, it's one thing for the industry to do it itself, because it goes at the rate of innovation that the industry can handle. Like, the industry will adapt as the industry innovates. But when it's spurred on by government subsidies and regulation and all this other shit, it is going to cause mass unemployment.
Right.
Because you're not ready for it. Like, the companies have to be ready for it to be beneficial. Otherwise, you're getting your mass unemployment just like he wants.
Right. And me, like, I drive I have a truck driving job, but I don't drive an 18-wheeler. What I do is actually done in a pickup truck. It's for smaller loads, being able to be moved very, very quickly, or to move passengers quickly to heliports, things like that. It's just like a different kind of thing versus like your large 18-wheeler type of thing. So people in smaller trucks probably won't have as much to worry about, but he wants to appoint a trucking czar. Right. To oversee the successful transitioning of truck drivers as self-driving trucks become more commonplace. Ask Andy Stern to lead the commission. I don't know who Andy Stern is. I don't know. Maybe he's like the world's greatest truck driver. I don't know. Propose a tax on profits derived from self-driving trucks to provide severance packages for the drivers whose jobs are replaced. The estimated cost savings and efficiency gains of automated freight are $168 billion per year, which is enough to pay the truckers significant sums and still save tens of billions per year. I don't know if this is like an ongoing severance package. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot about his UBI. So they're going to be getting $1,000 per month.
Isn't his UBI supposed to be the severance package for all of these jobs?
Yeah, I don't know. So that was one that's kind of like,
he's coming in from so many different angles to completely screw the trucking industry.
Yeah, I mean, and transportation is, going to go in that kind of way. You're going to see, automated, even like boats, things like that, because it's pretty, be easy to program, from port to port. You're going to see automated planes, all these kind of things. Automation is coming, but I don't think it's going to have the doom and gloom kind of impact that he's talking about. I mean, bigger companies are going to be able to afford these things,
like
but
the Industrial Revolution, where dozens of people died, like he was pointing out.
Right, yeah. I mean, bigger companies, like big oil field companies, are going to be able to afford these kind of things. Like Shell uses Ryder for all of their stuff. Cameron, Schlumberger, they use XPO. So those are bigger companies that deal with these huge contracts that do a massive amount of transportation that probably will be able to afford these kind of things. But it doesn't mean that every single truck on the road is going to be automated, unless, of course, you make some sort of regulation demanding that every single truck on the road has to be automated. In which case you would just
raise the goods of almost everything on the market, because everything is, it relies on the trucking industry.
Right,
so
exactly.
Prices from so many different things in his platform, but this is going to also raise prices because people are not ready, like financially ready to switch 100% to self-driving vehicles. This is ridiculous.
It is a big mess. So that one is something that didn't really make much sense at all. It piqued my interest because I was like, oh, I hate self-driving vehicles. And then once I read it, I was like,
not nefarious on its face, but this is probably one of the most offensive platforms that he has.
Oh, it is, because it contradicts some of his other things, his fear of automation, and now this one is, like you're saying, accelerating the automation.
Yeah.
What was the other one? Oh, yeah. Monetize military spending.
This is the best.
Really
yeah. Yeah, we spoke about this a little bit before. Yeah, we spoke about this one a little bit before. I gave you a little bit of a preview, but this one's something. Now, whenever you first see it, okay, modernize military spending. Okay, military spending is one of those things everyone knows, is out of control, so that's what you're kind of thinking at first, Well, what he's talking about is, he opens up as, saying like, many soldiers are returning home with issues or injuries and aren't receiving the right support or opportunity. And we're like, well, yeah, that's true. Yes, definitely. The VA is a complete wreck. Everyone knows that. So you're like, all right, cool. Okay, today, loose nuclear material, cyber terrorism, misinformation, and other unconventional attacks pose a grave threat to America, and these are less impacted by manpower and equipment on military bases. Money and resources should be redirected to places where it can do the most to protect us from the actual threats we're facing today. And you're like, okay, yeah, all right. I get that. The world is changing. Even the way wars are fought is is changing. There's going to be more cyber terrorism, that kind of thing where, instead of a bomb being dropped, an EMP, and just electricity is just wiped out. There's no destruction, but just electricity is wiped out. So you're like, okay, I think I kind of get where he's going with this. And then, you see, as president, I will invest in the treatment of veterans and ensure that soldiers are treated with care and respect upon returning home by a system that recognizes them as assets and contributors. And you're like, cool. I get that. That's definitely something that needs to be done. Direct the Secretary of Defense to identify areas where military spending is going to programs that aren't making us safer in the context of modern warfare that can be eliminated or are redundant. Okay. All right. And then rechannel 10% of the military budget, approximately $60 billion per year, to a new domestic infrastructure force called, and I am not making this up. I'm not making this up. The Legion of Builders and Destroyers.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Yes.
Like you can't.
Which sounds like a villain team that the Avengers fought one time. In the 80s or something.
And if you get into the plan that he has for them, that Avengers might have to fight them.
Oh yeah, exactly. The Legion would be tasked with keeping our country strong by making sure our bridges, roads, power grid, levees, dams, and infrastructure are up to date, sound, and secure. Which is what the Army Corps of Engineers already does.
Why?
Which if you
not memeing this,
I know, because that's going to be some great memes. Yeah. But that's what the Army Corps of Engineers already does. And then if you step back just one thing, talking about programs that are making us safer in the context of modern warfare that can be eliminated or are redundant, you're creating a redundant task, whatever the hell you want to call it, the Legion. Okay, it would already be able, it would also be able to clear derelict buildings and structures that cause urban blight in many of our communities and respond to natural disasters. So the Legion is just going to come in and just start knocking down buildings in Detroit, and just clearing,
like going through the streets with like some big ass robots, just destroying.
Yeah. Legion Prime is just going to come storming through because Donald Trump has to get his Space Force ready. So he's going to start building giant robots with the help of Japan, and there's going to be big Gundams, and then the Space Force, that program is going to be shut down.
I'd like
whenever
to say that it's ridiculous, but with the way this timeline is now, it's very possible.
Right. So, it would the Legion would prioritize projects based on national security, economic impact, and regional equity. Its independent budget would ensure that our infrastructure would be constantly upgraded regardless of the political climate. The commander of the Legion would have the ability to overrule local regulations and ordinances to ensure that projects are started and completed promptly and effectively.
And there's the supervillain. There's the supervillain. Yeah.
That's where the name makes so much sense. The Legion of Builders and Destroyers. Because it's just going to be, some trucks are just going to roll in, and they're all going to step out, and they're going to be like, all right, we got to clear this block because it's empty. And everyone's going to be like, well, wait.
Is ours now.
Right. Well, wait, these are historical buildings. We're actually, on our own as a local community, we were going to, rehabilitate these buildings and, build a homeless, shelter. And they're like, nope. And they're just going to clear it all with Legion Legion Prime is just going to come rolling through and is just going to be like, you shall be destroyed. It's going to like, lasers are going to come out and just blast this stuff down. It's absolutely nuts. I mean, local regulations and ordinances, and it's like, okay, an ordinance. Okay, what's an example of an ordinance? A noise ordinance. Past 10 p.m. in most communities, or 9 p.m. You have to stop. Say you're working on your house or something, and you're building a shed in your backyard, and you're trying to get it done. You got your lights out. Well, past a certain time, you're like, man, I got to shut down because the cops are going to come and shut me down because I'm making too much noise. I can't be running air compressors and stuff. Well, no, they can just overrule that. So they're just going to be running their machinery down your street at 2 a.m., because they got work to do and it's got to be completed.
Well, other ordinance would be like zoning ordinances and other things that affect property value. So
anything that they determine
and build
that they determine fair game.
Yeah, anything that they want to do, they can do it.
Yeah.
Right.
And the local community can't say shit about it. So if they want to, build a highway in the middle of a town, it's going to lower everyone's property values. They can't say anything.
Right.
About it.
And if you have some sort of local, there's certain areas that say they have protected wildlife. And, the local areas have, they have decided, look, we really like this, spotted crested barn owl. We really like it. We like seeing them. We want to protect them. Nope. It's going to roll down this forest because we got to build, a new, overpass here. Because, we got to complete this interstate. Well, this is going to be the most efficient way through. We can't go around like what you want to do. We're just going to go straight through.
It's just like when the Patriot Act gave powers that were supposed to fight terrorism but started being used in areas other than terrorism. I mean,
exactly.
This is perfectly set up to be used, whatever they deem necessary to building and destroying, they can do, and it's ripe for abuse. And the only thing that's going to get destroyed is local sovereignty and government.
Right. Exactly.
It's everything on here is about more power and more control.
Yeah.
Even the stuff that's painted nice, it's all about federal control.
Yeah. If your community, doesn't have enough, resources, building a special building that has, a certain government agency for doing whatever dumb thing that they want to do, and it's not compliant. Well, guess what? We're going to turn this building into one.
It's some serious, comic book villain.
We didn't need a boys and girls club because our local church provides that. And we have the Boy Scouts, and all this kind of stuff. This is what we do here. We don't need other kinds of things. Nope, you have to be compliant. So here's this thing, and we're going to turn this, this church or whatever that's been empty for 5 years, into this government, whatever. And but the name, the Legion of Builders and Destroyers. I mean, that's amazing.
You can't make up anything better.
I know, there has to be, in his house, in Andrew Yang's house, there has to be, an entire library devoted to just comic books and, video games. He has every Sega, he has every Nintendo, everything with all the games lined up and, on display. He totally nerded out with this one. Yeah. And it's
too bad.
It's just the craziest.
Responsible. Well,
it's just the craziest thing I ever read.
So a few things I found in his platform that I'm not a fan of would be the carbon fee and dividend platform he has. So getting into this, it's a carbon fee and dividend similar to the one proposed by the Conservative Climate Leadership Council, which would allow businesses to find market-based solutions to their carbon release while benefiting American citizens and providing funding for alternative fuel research and upgrades to our current energy systems. It could also be used to subsidize fuel costs for low-income Americans. There's a couple things wrong with that by, in stating a carbon fee and dividend, you're raising the price of fuel. So lower income Americans are going to have a harder time buying fuel. And then you're going to subsidize it? Like that doesn't make any sense. Just don't tax it. And then they can afford it just fine.
Yeah, I never understand how that thought process works out. You know that these increases are going to be passed on to the end consumer. It's inevitable. And now you're going to say, well, we'll just subsidize that consumer. From where?
From the money they took from them to begin with.
Yeah, I guess. I mean,
totally makes sense. Economically, it checks out. Great.
How are you going to pay for the builders and destroyers, though? I just and my marriage counseling. Come on, Caitlin.
I know. And the thing is, like, this also benefits, trucking and every other industry that relies on transportation. Like, this raises the price of everything. But, it's fine because he's going to give us $1,000 a month. Which will totally cover it.
Get those bags.
Oh, God. The other part of this is propose a carbon fee and dividend system that sets an initial carbon tax of $40 per ton, which would increase in regular intervals. Not a fan of that. Use that tax to fund after administrative fees, 50% towards the universal basic income. Here we go. So he's using money he's taken from the oil industry to fund the UBI, which will make fuel more expensive for the people he's giving the UBI to. It's just all of this funding is circular. Just don't take our fucking money. And you don't need the fucking UBI.
You think they would have learned not to mess with the oil industry? Because look what happened whenever they had the drilling moratorium in the Gulf of Mexico. They just kind of stopped drilling, and everyone lost their jobs. And they're still drilling. Like in the North Sea. There's Korean companies that are drilling, but you're missing out on a very, very great place, the Gulf of Mexico, that, very attainable. It's right there. It's literally right there. And you just need to just get it. And now you can't because companies have moved on.
Right.
Stop.
The other 50% goes towards projects that are enhancing efficiency of fossil fuels or increasing availability of renewable resources. So that's where the other 50% goes. The other, half goes towards the UBI. Like, oh my God, dude. There's so much wrong with this. The other part is create a border carbon adjustment to protect American goods that would charge a fee to imports from countries that don't impose a similar carbon fee or some type of carbon tax. Also to provide a rebate to exports to countries that don't impose a similar carbon fee or some type of carbon tax. So he's basically instituting like tariffs on countries that don't follow the same kind of thing he wants to do, that doesn't impose these carbon taxes on their own citizens. So he's starting fucking trade wars over carbon taxes. Like, how is that
he's trying to appeal to that little segment of his constituency. He's got something for everyone.
This is why I call him a radical centrist, because he's all over the place.
Yes.
He's got these, economic, protectionist bullshit that Trump does. Then he's got, the UBI shit, and he's seriously in every corner of the political spectrum. It's ridiculous.
At once.
I can't even wrap my head around what he even is. So
I kind of feel that, like, okay, if because the government just doesn't plan correctly, they just kind of just start like, okay, we're just gonna have a mix of everything, and there's going to be taxes and stuff on top of other ones and contradicting things and so on and so forth, just because, they're just absent-mindedly just creating all of this mess. And then Yang comes along and he's like, hey, let's just do it all at once.
Yeah.
Let's just do it now in 2020.
The end of
not 50.
The U.S.
Yeah, not 50 years from now, whenever we look back and we're like, how the hell did we get here? He just wants to do it now.
Well, and I think that's part of your libertarian fascination with him is, there's a certain strain in me that says, fuck it, let's blow it up now. So,
right.
I can certainly see the appeal.
I'm not.
Jesus.
I'm not an accelerationist, though. Like, I'm not about that.
Because me neither. I live here. I still live here.
I'm not a fan of that. I don't want economic collapse.
Yeah, I still live here in America. I'm not one of those people that just wants to blow everything. I want to make America great again. Yeah.
Can you not?
I'm sorry. I had to. I'm sorry. But, I want it to still be the United States of America, just like, the original vision, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with not having, a true monarchy or a true anarchy, even though I am an anarcho-capitalist, but I'm okay with everything working properly. I still live here. I have a kid that's going to live here for however long she's alive for. It's just one of those things that it's just, I liked playing Fallout. I love playing Fallout. I don't want to live Fallout. I don't want to live Fallout. No.
Well,
it's cool to play.
Children, he has another plank that just is disgusting with propaganda. So it's called Reduce Harm to Children Caused by Smartphones, which is just a ridiculous sentence, first off. So getting into this, somewhere between 2.1 and 2.5 billion humans currently own a smartphone. While early models were released as early as 1992, the first iPhone was released in 2007. In a little over a decade, these machines have become ubiquitous throughout the world. In the U.S., around 70% of adults have smartphones. This is straight from his platform. I am going to read the whole thing just because it's so ridiculous, the jump from what he's laying out as a problem to what his solutions are. So literally his next line in his platform starts out, what about the children? Research suggests 22% of young children, 60% of tweens, and 84% of teenagers currently use a smartphone. While these devices provide unparalleled access to information, their impact on the mind is barely understood. That's debatable, but okay. Researchers are just beginning to look at the impact focusing on a screen all day has on human development, and the conclusions are devastating. There has been an unprecedented surge in depression, anxiety, and suicide, and a marked decrease in sociability. Teenagers are spending more time worrying about whether their online acquaintances like their recent post than they are in person with their friends hanging out and developing social skills. The average teenager spends Friday nights at home interacting with a machine instead of out with friends at a game or event. First, can we talk about how really stupid it is to just ignore that internet friends are real?
I mean, you're my internet friend.
Yes, we're all internet friends. I started Think Liberty on the internet. Like, it doesn't make it any less real.
Well, I remember Vinny saying something, and I want to say it was his Amazon episode. This is when we were younger. Yeah, everybody went, and where they met was outside at the playground or whatever. Online is where you meet now. This is social interaction. And
right.
people are going to where people are to meet them.
Yeah,
me and Caitlin.
Evolutionary experience, and it's not necessarily a bad thing that it changes.
Me and Caitlin, we went to parks
all over the world and get, an incredible amount of information that obviously wouldn't be available, 50 years ago, hanging out at the mall, like Yang wants to do. He wants to bring back malls too, which is a great one to cover later.
Oh yeah.
So anyways, let's move on because I'll go off forever on that. Okay, so those who have...
Well, real quick.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, real quick. Like he's talking about, not hanging out like we used to. I just wanted to ask Matthew real quick. What exactly were like the malt shops like with the jukeboxes and the greasers and
Dude, it was sweet as shit, man. Those were the days.
Oh boy.
Was it just like in Greece? Like did y'all just break into song?
Ran around singing, dancing and shit, combing our hair. It's fucking awesome.
All right.
Oh boy.
For real. We'll have to do it sometime, man.
Anyway,
I'll show you.
Those who have worked within the industry describe the work they've done in stark terms. Often relating apps to slot machines, they say that the smartest minds of a generation are spending their time getting teenagers to click on ads and obsess over social media posts to see how many acquaintances respond or react to their post. In short, many experts are worrying that the widespread adoption of a poorly understood technology have destroyed the psyches of a generation. Smartphones are turning our kids into anxious and depressed zombies. Parents can't compete. We need to help people take control and make smartphone use healthy and productive. Asking technology companies to regulate themselves is unfeasible. They will always want to maximize engagement regardless of the social impact. Government must provide guardrails to keep technology from corroding our mental and emotional well-being, particularly young people. I love my smartphone too, but we need to get a grip on the impact of this technology for the sake of our children. Those beautiful words at the end, for the sake of our children.
Won't you please think of the children?
Ridiculous is this? Oh my God.
Is it?
Okay, so he doesn't want technology companies to regulate themselves, so he's going to have the government, who has screwed up every program they have ever instituted, to regulate technology for the children. On science that isn't even available. He's worrying about, destroying the psyches of a generation that isn't even out of teenagehood. There's nothing to analyze. There's no data available on what it actually does long term. So he's creating a problem that may or may not actually exist. This is just parents who don't like their kids and their phones. This is a baby boomer problem.
And I don't think that he gives two shits about the kids and their phones. I think this is another carefully crafted play to a constituency. This time it's not Republican, Democrat, right or left, but it's that helicopter parent that sits and frets. And I know you guys have had to hear them, about how much you let your kid on the phone, or these machines are ruining our generation, all this bullshit that you hear.
Facebook isn't real life.
Right. There's a whole constituency there that's hearing that and saying, all right, this guy gets it.
Facebook.
Oh, totally.
Yes.
Absolutely. All the freaking time, man. Ah.
Just completely ignoring the way, society is nowadays. Like, careers are completely online. There are entire industries that are based on, social interaction on the internet.
It's more playing to people's fears.
It's not something that's destroying our children. This is the way the market is going. So if you're going to ignore it or try and hinder it, you're not going to have a good time.
Yeah, I mean,
playing to fears.
I'm a parent. Actually, all three of us are parents. But I'm a parent. My daughter, whenever she was a little bit over a year old, she's 3 now. She commandeered our tablet. Me and my wife, we had a tablet that we would kind of share amongst each other, and she just took it. And, she started watching YouTube and stuff like that. She figured all of this out, how to watch her Blippi and, her Baby Shark videos and all that very, very early on. And so what we have done is we were like, well, let's just use this technology that we have here and try to see if we can help her out. She learned all of her alphabet before she was 2. She could count to 10 before she was 2. She's 3 and she's reading a little bit, writing her own name, spelling her own name, all of these kind of things. And yeah, could we have done it without the tablet? Probably, but it would have been a lot more work. Technology.
But not every parent is built to teach. Like,
right.
I'm not good at teaching. Like, I'm just not. I've tried. I have 2 kids myself. I'm not good at teaching kids things. But my daughter watches, the nursery rhymes that have the alphabet songs and the counting songs. My 2-year-old daughter can count to 20, knows our entire alphabet, can do basic math, knows all of her shapes, all because of cartoons, and I never worked with her on it.
Right. You're scared. Yeah, you're scared of this technology and the what can possibly go wrong, and you're ignoring everything that has gone right. Now these are anecdotal things, me and you, but there's so many parents that love these apps and things, Khan Academy for kids, just so many things like that are so beneficial to their kids, their games, their fun, so they can play all this stuff and learn, and they do it from a very young age, and they're more prepared whenever they get to preschool, whenever they get to kindergarten. It's like,
well, a good example.
It would be like,
I just got him into a charter school. His kindergarten class has coding. They're learning, computers already, and they're going to be learning how to code software by 5th grade.
Right. Why are you so scared of this technology? It would be like if you're scared of Sesame Street in the 70s, because they're just going to sit in front of the TV. Mm-hmm. Well, look at all the good that Sesame Street has done. I learned a whole lot from Sesame Street.
Well,
I learned a lot from Mr. Rogers.
Because of technology.
Yeah, who didn't learn something from Mr. Rogers? That was what we had at the time. And this is what the kids today have. This is just the way things go. To be scared of these things is just boomer fear-mongering.
It's bullshit. It's boomer bullshit. Mm-hmm. So in his platform, he lays out the problems to be solved. It's new technologies are developing and being adopted throughout society faster than we can understand their repercussions. Smartphones are having an untold impact on our children that will affect them throughout their lifetimes. Okay, so an untold impact, and then it will affect them throughout their lifetimes. How do you know that? If it's untold, you're not going to know that. Anyways, so those are the problems to be solved. Here are the solutions, which is just disgusting how he gets these solutions from these, fake problems. So, create a department of the attention economy that focuses specifically on smartphones and social media, gaming, and chat apps, and how to responsibly design and use them, including age restrictions and guidelines. So this is another department of the federal government that will focus on smartphones and apps that children use. Another one is create a best practices design philosophy for the industry to minimize the antisocial impacts of these technologies on children who are using them. Now, the last one is the one that he sneaks in there that is just disgusting. Okay, so direct the department to investigate the regulation of certain companies and apps. Many of these companies essentially function as public utilities and news sources. We used to regulate the broadcast networks and newspapers and phone companies. We need to do the same thing to Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and other companies now that they are primary ways people both receive information and communicate with each other.
No.
So let that sink in for a minute.
Yeah.
He wants to create a new department of the federal government and is wrapping this up into a way to protect the children from antisocial behavior and regulate Facebook, Twitter, and Snapchat the same way you regulate telephone companies and internet providers and newspapers and other public utilities. Let's look at how these public utilities are now. They have monopolies, and a vast majority of the country, these public utilities have monopolies. You really want to do the same kind of thing and screw up these private companies the same way you have the phone companies and everything else that's gone to shit since the government got involved? No. Fuck this.
Yeah, I don't want to log into Facebook.com.
Protecting children from smartphones and researching the effects they have on development. Fuck that. This is a very sneaky way to get Elizabeth Warren's regulate social media thing into his platform and make it look good. No.
There's also a way for the IRS to be able to control premium Snapchats and tax them and stuff like that.
You're not wrong.
I mean, just saying. I mean, it would be, it would be one of those things.
But this is just like a really sneaky way for the government to take over another industry.
But bags, guys, bags. He's going to give us bags.
Yeah, $1,000 a month. That's cool.
$1,000.
That's how he's wrapping up all this communist bullshit.
Right.
Into his platform. Like, he's literally taking over industries and proposing that the government control these privately owned things. That's literally communism.
Yep. Yep.
I can't even... And people are calling him an advocate of the free market.
It's laughable that anybody thinks that there's anything free market about this gentleman. The whole platform is central control by the federal government at every fucking level.
Yeah.
You know what I would really like?
He's good on zoning, but that's all I got.
Well, he does. The notion, I think, is good on zoning. I think that going in and trying to tell the localities how they're going to handle their zoning.
Yeah, that's how
even with your good intentions, right? Yeah.
It's just it's crazy how much support this guy is getting when he's literally advocating, the government become everyone's nanny.
Yeah, I think we know who he has in mind
to control behavior of everyone in every aspect of their life.
Yeah, I think we know who he has in mind for the commander of building and destruction. I think he's got that role wrapped up. He's ready to, especially the destruction. So
Mark Zuckerberg?
No, him.
Oh,
that's going to be the Yang Bang. He's going to be the one doing the
Yang Bang.
Yeah.
That's what I'd really like to see?
That's going to be the destructive tool there, buddy.
You know what I'd really like to see? Because this guy has done probably thousands of interviews, and probably every single one has been about UBI. I would love for someone to interview him and go through all of these things and watch him stumble.
Well, that's actually why I wanted to do this episode, because I see everybody focusing on UBI, which by itself, without getting into the weeds of it, isn't a horrible thing. It's still debated in libertarian circles. In certain ways it could be done. I don't agree with his version of it, but it's not the worst thing. So it's getting attention, but that's all people are talking about. They're not getting into these laughable, platform positions, and they have no idea that this guy is like the Asian Marx, basically. Like I can't. I don't know. It's really frustrating. So that's why I wanted to do this episode, to get into all of these other platforms so people could see that he's not just like some cool guy in the memes that wants to give you $1,000 a month. Like he's really dangerous.
Yeah. He's a Asian Bernie who's trying to also be a Trump, Elizabeth Warren, and pretty much any other politician you can think of. There's literally something in here for everyone. It's truly remarkable.
Yeah. Radical centrism used to be a meme, and now it's a guy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty sad, the state of things now. So that's basically all I wanted to cover. Is there any last things you guys wanted to say before we wrap up?
Lonie, I absolutely expect and demand to see some memes about the Legion of Builders and Destroyers. I mean, that's screaming for you, man.
I won't be able to pay you $40 an hour for them, but it would be cool to get some memes for the Legion.
I have some ideas in mind. I've begun collecting some images that I want to try to turn into memes. So you should see some stuff on the page pretty soon.
Oh yeah.
Very good. Well, speaking of the page, be sure to follow us on all forms of social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, basically anywhere on social media you'll find Think Liberty and Being Libertarian. So be sure to follow us there. Be sure to subscribe to the Think Liberty Network wherever you listen to your podcasts, and leave us a review. It really helps us out. So I don't have anything else. Is there anything you guys want to plug before we go?
No.
I mean, as far as the social media stuff, I mean, I run the Twitter, so I mean, I guess if you want hear more of me, follow the Twitter.
It is very good Twitter. I'm a fan.
It is. I did a movie review of Abducted in Plain Sight.
Oh, you did?
I did.
That was one hell of a documentary.
It was. Y'all need to see that. It is. If y'all haven't seen it, go watch it. It's amazing.
All right.
Don't watch it super late at night because it'll just keep you up until the next morning like it did last night for me.
Yeah, just wondering what the hell just happened. All right. Well, whether you like it or not, we'll probably be back next week.